Raised down right now is Masukuddin. He is an aide of Atique Ahmed, who of course is a Neta turned Gunda, accused and a key conspirator in the Umesh Pal murder case. Abhishek Mishra has more details on that story. Abhishek, get us more details about Masukuddin. Essentially, is an aide of Atique. What more can you tell us?
Well, certainly the action is again continuing in this whole matter, and we've seen how, the government and all the top officials, specifically in this case, are now one by one taking the action. And again, this action has been taken. The property belongs to the son of Mukhtar Ansari, and that is what is happening here. At the same time, it is also very important with the kind of, things have been made clear by the Yogi Adityanath government that if there is any kind of involvement, then certainly such an action will be taken. And once again, this is quite evident what is happening right now. And again, the Yogi Adityanath government and the police officials are there and taking the action in charge.
But what more about this man? Also, he's a history sheeter. His family members, his sons, nephews, all of them have cases registered against them.
Well, yes, certainly, and moreover, it is important that the son of Mukhtar Ansari and Umar Ansari, he has the possession of 2-floor buildings, this house, and at the same time, a police force has been deployed there in big capacity, and it's all set to get demolished as soon as possible because it has been found as illegal property once again. The kind of clearance which was required is not given, and as far as the profile is concerned, yes, he's indeed a history sheeter, had a lot of cases against him. But time again, the Yogi Adityanath government and their ministers have made it again and again clear that whosoever is found, an unlawful activity or a construction which is illegal, they will not waste any time demolishing it, and that's again something which is again happening today in Mau.
So in that sense, there is an indirect link to the Umesh Pal murder case also, given that Mukhtar Ansari's kin essentially are under the scanner, isn't it? And you said that one of the floors belongs to him. Abhishek? Okay, we'll just go back to Abhishek to get more details of this demolition. In fact, these are pictures coming in from Prayagraj. This is a house of Atique Ahmed's aide, Masukuddin essentially. Atique Ahmed, remember, is a key conspirator in the Umesh Pal murder. The house is that of an aide of Atique Ahmed, but however, the man in question, Masukuddin, by far has not seemed to be involved in the Umesh Pal murder. However, this is in perfect line with what has been promised by the UP Chief Minister in terms of the action that they are taking against several mafias, gangs, gundas in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Not the first time that bulldozers have been raised in, and certainly not the last. In fact, this is continuing demolition activity that we've seen. The third day essentially today of demolition that we've been seeing in Prayagraj. Earlier, MP Atique Ahmed's wife, Shaista Parveen's house had been demolished as well. This by the Prayagraj Development Authority. And now this is Masukuddin's house in aid of, again, Atique Ahmed getting demolished. A known history sheeter, however, not believed to be involved as of now in the Umesh Pal case. But this is an aid of Atique Ahmed that is getting demolished. Pictures coming in from Prayagraj. And this is in line with what has always been promised by UP Chief Minister, that bulldozers will raise down the illegal structures of gundas, is what has been said. And that's exactly what is being done.
करके 40 मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। यह मकान मसकुद्दीन की बहू के नाम पर दर्ज है। यह उनकी बहू और उनके जो बेटे हैं, बताया जा रहा है कि एक जो बेटा है वो टीचर भी बताया जा रहा है, उनकी पत्नी के नाम पर दर्ज है। लेकिन पुलिस के सूत्रों के अनुसार कि ये इन्वेस्टमेंट था मसकुद्दीन का, जो अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति बताई जा रही थी। वहीं दूसरी तरफ 40 से अधिक मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। अतीक अहमद का बेहद करीबी बताया जा रहा है मसकुद्दीन को। पूरा मुफ्ती थाना है प्रयागराज का, वहाँ का हिस्ट्री शीटर है मसकुद्दीन। और ये जो मकान है, इस मकान को लेकर के एक बात सामने आई कि बगल में एयरफोर्स स्टेशन है। एयरफोर्स स्टेशन की ज़मीन को कब्जा करके इस मकान को बनाए जाने की बात आई। हालांकि परिवार वालों का कहना है कि ये उनकी पुश्तैनी ज़मीन है, जिसको मसकुद्दीन ने अपनी बहू को दान में दे दिया। और ये दान का जो एग्रीमेंट है रजिस्टर्ड है, वो उस रजिस्टर्ड एग्रीमेंट के बाद उसके बाद इस मकान को लोन लेने के बाद बनाया है। लेकिन प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण का कहना है कि ये जो ज़मीन है, इस ज़मीन को एयरफोर्स की ज़मीन बताई गई और जिस पर यह बुलडोज़र चल रहा है। बहरहाल मसकुद्दीन और उनके 2 बेटों और उनके 2 भतीजों पर 40 से ज़्यादा मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। मसकुद्दीन पूरा मुफ्ती थाने के हिस्ट्री शीटर हैं, जिनके इस मकान को इनकी बहू के नाम पर कागजों में ये दर्ज है। लेकिन प्रशासन के अधिकारियों का कहना है कि ये सिर्फ बहू के नाम का इस्तेमाल किया गया है, इसमें असल पैसा मसकुद्दीन का लगा है, जो कि अपराध से अर्जित कमाई है, जो उनके हनक से अतीक अहमद की करीबी होने के चलते जो पैसा कमाया, उससे ये मकान खड़ा किया गया, जिसको आज जमींदोज किया जा रहा है। ये सबसे बड़ी बात कि प्रयागराज के पूरा मुफ्ती थाना क्षेत्र का ये इलाका है, ये आउटर इलाका है प्रयागराज का, ग्रामीण इलाका। इसके बाद कौशाम्बी जिला शुरू हो जाता है, वहाँ पर ये मकान बनाया गया। बगल में एयरफोर्स स्टेशन है प्रयागराज का, वहाँ पर ये मकान बनाया गया और हाईवे के किनारे ही है। करोड़ों की ज़मीन है, ये करीब 500 गज़ में, ये स्क्वायर 500 गज़ में बना हुआ ये मकान है और जिसकी कीमत यहाँ पर 3 से 4 करोड़ से कम नहीं आंकी जा रही है। लेकिन प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण का कहना है कि ये पूरा मकान बिना नक्शा पास करवाए तो बना ही था। लेकिन पुलिस का अपना क्राइम एंगल भी है कि अतीक अहमद के करीबी मसकुद्दीन जो हिस्ट्री शीटर है, जो कभी अतीक अहमद के लिए शूटर के तौर पर काम किया, उनकी ये ज़मीन है। उनके द्वारा ये अपनी बहू को दिखाने के लिए कागज़ों में कानून से बचने के लिए ये ज़मीन दी गई और जिस पर ये मकान खड़ा है, जिसको आज जमींदोज किया जा रहा है। देखिए किस तरीके से बुलडोज़र और जेसीबी मशीनें एक साथ काम कर रही हैं। देखिए जो 2 तस्वीरें आप सामने देख रहे हैं, दोनों तरफ से पूरे मकान को गिराया जा रहा है।
Abhishek Mishra getting us all of those details and the pictures. A ground report saying that this, in fact, has been this house, this illegal structure, has been constructed on a piece of land that is, in fact, not where this structure was to come up. There is illegality in terms of the construction of this structure. However, speaking volumes of the kind of action that is being taken against the mafia and gundas in the state of Uttar Pradesh, bulldozers are getting, in fact, once again, they are getting rolled into these colonies in Prayagraj. This essentially is the 3rd day of the bulldozer activity.
से मसकुद्दीन और कोई मतलब नहीं है, ये सिर्फ अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति है। अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति के चलते ये अतीक अहमद गैंग से संबंध होने के कारण मसकुद्दीन की संपत्ति को जमींदोज किया जा रहा है। और जिसके बाद अब ये जो एक्शन हो रहा है, ये जो देख रहे हैं आप कि बुलडोज़र चलाए जा रहे हैं, चारों तरफ से बुलडोज़र चलाया जा रहा है और इस पर ये जो एक्शन हो रहा है, इसको पुलिस ने आपराधिक एंगल तो दिया है कि अतीक अहमद गैंग से जुड़े रहे, अतीक अहमद के लिए शूटर का काम करते थे। लेकिन जिस उमेश पाल हत्याकांड की बात की जा रही है, उस उमेश पाल हत्याकांड से आज मसकुद्दीन जिनकी बहू का घर ये गिराया जा रहा है, उसके कोई मतलब नहीं है, कोई कनेक्शन अभी तक नहीं बताया गया, कोई कनेक्शन अभी नज़र नहीं आ रहा। लेकिन क्राइम एंगल ज़रूर है, क्राइम कनेक्शन ज़रूर है मसकुद्दीन का और अतीक कनेक्शन भी है। अतीक के गैंग से जुड़े रहे हैं, अतीक के बेहद करीबी रहे हैं। अधिकारियों का कहना है कि वो तो अतीक के लिए शूटर का काम करते रहे और यही वजह है कि मसकुद्दीन, उनको दोनों बेटे और भतीजों पर कुल 40 मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। इवन मसकुद्दीन पर 16 मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। तो ये बड़ी कार्रवाई अतीक अहमद के गैंग के ऊपर की जा रही है।
Members of the Atique Ahmed gang being targeted one by one is what Abhishek Mishra is in fact telling us. Again, the bulldozers have rolled into this locality in Prayagraj, razing down a structure that belongs to the aide of Atique Ahmed, the key conspirator in the Umesh Pal murder case. And this is the 3rd day of this demolition activity that we've seen by the Prayagraj Development Authority. Action that had been promised by the Chief Minister of UP against gundas.
गैंगस्टर एक्ट में 14(1) की कार्रवाई होती है। ये नियम कहता है कि अगर अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति को खड़ा किया गया है, उदाहरण के तौर पर अगर आज मार्च 2023 के बाद से संतोष मेरे नाम पर अगर कोई संपत्ति आती है और आज ही पहली एफआईआर दर्ज होती है, जिस दिन से पहली एफआईआर दर्ज होगी उसके बाद से अर्जित सारी संपत्ति अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति मानी जाती है और उसको गैंगस्टर एक्ट में जब कार्रवाई करते हैं, संपत्ति जब्तीकरण की, संपत्ति के ध्वस्तीकरण की कार्रवाई होती है, तब इस कार्रवाई को अंजाम दिया जाता, बुलडोजर चलता है। ये पुलिस एक्शन हो गया। वहीं दूसरी तरफ जो दो और तरीके हैं जिस पर बुलडोजर चलाया जाता वो है एक सरकारी ज़मीन पर कब्जा करके कि ये सरकारी ज़मीन, किसी भी सरकारी ज़मीन, चाहे वो ग्राम समाज की ज़मीन हो, जैसे कि इस ज़मीन को बताया जा रहा है कि एयरफोर्स की ज़मीन है, हालांकि परिवार इसको खरीद कर रहा है, उनका कहना है ये हमारी पुश्तैनी ज़मीन है। तो अगर किसी सरकारी ज़मीन को कब्जा करके कोई इमारत खड़ी की गई है तो उस पर बुलडोजर चलाया जाएगा, उस सरकारी ज़मीन को खाली कराया जाएगा। और तीसरा जो प्रावधान है वो कहता है कि अगर किसी भी निजी ज़मीन पर कोई इमारत खड़ी होती है लेकिन वो लोकल बॉडी, लोकल अथॉरिटी से, चाहे वो डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटी हो या म्यूनसिपल कॉरपोरेशन हो, उससे अगर उसका मैप पास नहीं है या नक्शे से अधिक वो बनाया गया तो उसको जमींदोज किया जाएगा। इन 3 फैक्टर्स के साथ ही बुलडोजर चलाया जाता है। क्राइम एंगल होगा, यानी कि अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति होगी, और अगर बिना नक्शा पास कराए सरकारी ज़मीन पर कब्जा करके संपत्ति खड़ी होगी तो इन 3 परिस्थितियों में ही बुलडोजर चलाया जाएगा। और यहाँ पर मसकुद्दीन में तो तीनों कनेक्शन हैं, ये अतीक अहमद के भी करीबी रहे हैं, वहीं दूसरी तरफ इनके खुद के ऊपर, इनके परिवार के दोनों बेटे, इनके भतीजे के ऊपर 40 मुकदमे दर्ज हैं, मसकुद्दीन के ऊपर 16 मुकदमे दर्ज हैं, पूरा मुफ्ती थाने के हिस्ट्री शीटर बताए गए हैं। तो अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति की आशंका जताई गई है। हालांकि कागज़ में मैं फिर कहना चाहूँगा कि दस्तावेज़ों में ये मकान मसकुद्दीन की बहू के नाम पर दर्ज है जो सरकारी टीचर है, और सबसे बड़ी बात कि इस मकान पर लोन भी लिया गया है। तो एक ये कागज़ों में ये किया गया है, लेकिन पुलिस को अंदेशा है कि ये अपराध से अर्जित संपत्ति है। और दूसरी तरफ एक तर्क ये भी सामने आ रहा है कि एयरपोर्ट की सरकारी ज़मीन पर कब्जा करके मकान बनाया गया है। परिवार इसका भी तर्क अपना दे रहा है कि उनके पास कागजात हैं।
Getting in details from the bulldozer that is now in fact razing down an illegal structure, as is being said by the Prayagraj Development Authority, of an aide of Atique Ahmed. In fact, we've seen several instances of bulldozers getting rolled in, razing down illegal structures belonging to members of these gangs. This is in fact a member of the Atique Ahmed gang, मसकुद्दीन।
इस मकान में अभी कोई रह नहीं रहा था। ये मकान तैयार करके, जो जिसको कहते हैं कि कुरान खानी करके, यानी पूजा पाठ करने के बाद इसमें शुरू होनी थी, इसमें रहना शुरू करते, लेकिन उससे पहले ही इसको जमींदोज किया जा रहा है। आज सबसे बड़ी बात कि यहाँ पर जो लोग भी सामने आ रहे हैं वो लोग या तो जो मकान मालिकिन है, मतलब जो मसकुद्दीन की जो बहू है, उनके चाचा, उनके पिताजी नज़र आ रहे हैं। मसकुद्दीन के दोनों बेटे यहाँ पर अभी मुझे नज़र नहीं आ रहे। मैंने सभी से पूछा कि मसकुद्दीन कौन है, उनके पति कौन है, तो वो नज़र नहीं आ रहे हैं, लेकिन वो महिला नज़र आई, लेकिन उनसे बात नहीं हो पाई। उनके चाचा और पिताजी से हमारी ज़रूर बात हुई, जो मसकुद्दीन के जो समधी हैं उनसे बात हुई, तो उनका कहना है कि ये तो मकान उनकी बेटी के नाम पर दर्ज है, और जब बेटी के नाम पर दर्ज है, बाकायदा लोन लिया हुआ है, तब उसको क्यों गिराया जा रहा है। लेकिन इसके नाम पर लोन भी लिया हुआ है, लेकिन प्रशासन का कहना है कि एयरपोर्ट की ज़मीन को कब्जा करके बनाया गया। और जाहिर है कि बगल में, मैं बताऊं कि इस मकान के ठीक बगल में मुझे एयरफोर्स की बाउंड्री भी नज़र आ रही है। जो मकान है यहाँ से महज 50 मीटर की दूरी पर ही एयरफोर्स की बाउंड्री होती है। प्रशासन कह रहा है कि एयरफोर्स की ज़मीन पर कब्जा करके बनाया गया है, और वहीं घर वालों का कहना है कि ये उनकी पुश्तैनी ज़मीन है। दस्तावेज़ वो दिखा रहे हैं, उसका दाखिल खारिज दिखा रहे हैं, उसका लोन बता रहे हैं कि इस पर लोन लिया गया है, करीब 40 लाख रुपए की कॉस्ट पर यह मकान खड़ा किया गया है। बहरहाल प्रशासन ने आज प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण ने अतीक अहमद गैंग से जुड़े मसकुद्दीन के मकान को जमींदोज किया है। ये मकान दस्तावेज़ों में मसकुद्दीन की जो बहू हैं उनके नाम पर दर्ज बताया जा रहा है। जी गौरव जी।
Bulldozers there, in fact, pulling down illegal structures as per the orders of the government there, and in line with what has been said by Chief Minister of UP, that this kind of action, but bulldozers raising down illegal structures and members of such gangs like this one is going to continue. This is the house of Masukuddin, part of the gang of Atique Ahmed, remember, who is in fact facing charges of involvement in the Umesh murder case. He's a neta turned goon
तीसरा दिन है। पहले
Let's
दो
go back to
मकान,
this round
पहले
report.
मकान से शुरू करते हैं। जफर अहमद खान का मकान था जिसको गिराया गया, जिसको बिना नक्शा पास करवाए बनाया गया। जफर अहमद खान के वकील जो अतीक अहमद के भी वकील हैं, वो कहा गया कि ये मकान खरीदा गया और उसमें शाइस्ता रहती थी, जो अतीक अहमद की पत्नी है वो रहती थी। उनके मकान को गिराया गया। कल जिसका मकान गिराया गया वो एसएसए गन हाउस है यहाँ पर जॉनसन रोड में प्रयागराज में, उनके मकान को गिराया गया। हालांकि पुलिस प्रशासन का कहना था कि वो अतीक अहमद से जुड़े हैं, लेकिन उनका वो पूरा परिवार सामने आया था। देखिए, आज जो 3 दिनों में कार्रवाई हुई है, ये पहली कल जो जिनका घर गिराया गया था उनके घर वो पहली बार सामने आए थे, उनका पूरा परिवार सामने आया था। और उनके परिवार का कहना है, जो घर के मालिक थे उनके दोनों बेटे थे जिनका एसएसए गन हाउस है, उनका कहना है कि हमारा अतीक अहमद से कोई रिलेशन नहीं है, हम तो यहाँ पर रह रहे हैं और हमें प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण ने कभी नोटिस भी नहीं दिया। तो अभी कोई भी परिवार अभी कोर्ट की शरण में तो नहीं जाने की बात सामने आई है, लेकिन इतना ज़रूर है कि उनकी अपनी नाराज़गी है। कल जिस तरीके से नाराज़गी आई थी कि हमें नोटिस नहीं दिया गया, और वहीं दूसरी तरफ आज भी जिस तरीके से परिवार की नाराज़गी है कि हमको बताया नहीं गया। और सबसे बड़ी बात कि मसकुद्दीन का ये मकान नहीं है, उनका कहना है ये मकान तो उनकी बहू के नाम पर दर्ज है, बहू ने ये लिया हुआ मकान, बहू को उन्होंने ये ज़मीन दान में दी थी और जिस पर उसने अपना लोन लेकर के मकान बनवाया है। तो ये एक बड़ी बात है जिस पर मसकुद्दीन के बहू के मकान के ऊपर ये कार्रवाई की जा रही है। हालांकि जो पुलिस के अफसर हैं कैंप जी
And the bulldozer action continues against the mafia and gundas in the state of Uttar Pradesh. And this comes just few days after, on the floor of the assembly, also Yogi Adityanath had spoken about crushing the mafia raj in Uttar Pradesh. Mafia ko mitti mein mila denge is what was said by Chief Minister of UP, and that's exactly what's happening. While the person whose house is getting razed says that this is not illegal. And this is in fact his daughter-in-law's house.
जब से उत्तर प्रदेश में बुलडोजर चलना शुरू किया है, तब से अपराधियों की संपत्ति की जब भी चर्चा हुई तो अतीक अहमद और मुख्तार अंसारी, ये दो नाम ऐसे थे कि या तो उनके परिवार वालों, उनके नज़दीकियों, उनके गुर्गों, उनके लोगों पर संपत्ति पर बुलडोजर चला है। और अतीक अहमद के गैंग के ऊपर जिस तरीके से आरोप लगा कि बीते शुक्रवार को उमेश पाल हत्याकांड को अंजाम दिया गया, उस उमेश पाल हत्याकांड के बाद से ये तेज़ी ज़रूर आई है। यह अभियान पहले से चल रहा था, लेकिन उमेश पाल हत्याकांड के बाद से तेज़ी ज़रूर आई है कि लगातार 3 दिनों से बुलडोज़र चल रहा है। पहले दिन जफ़र अहमद खान के घर पर, जिसने अतीक की पत्नी को शरण दी थी और जहां पर शूटर शाइस्ता से मिलने गए थे। दूसरा मकान सफदर अली का, जो सफदर अली गन हाउस चलाते हैं, लेकिन उनका अतीक अहमद गैंग से कोई कनेक्शन सामने नहीं आया, कोई क्राइम कनेक्शन सामने नहीं आया, कोई उमेश पाल हत्याकांड से कनेक्शन सामने नहीं आया। आज तीसरा दिन जो मसकुद्दीन का, जिनका बताया जा रहा है कि मसकुद्दीन की ये बहू के नाम पर ये मकान दर्ज है, मसकुद्दीन के ऊपर ज़रूर मुकदमे दर्ज हैं, उनके दोनों बेटे और भतीजों, कुल मिलाकर के 40 के लगभग मुकदमे दर्ज हैं। वो पूरा मुफ्ती के हिस्ट्री शीटर बताए जा रहे हैं, अतीक अहमद के भी करीबी बताए गए हैं, जिस पर कि ये कहा जा रहा है कि प्रशासन का कहना है, पुलिस सूत्रों का कहना है कि ये मकान बेसिकली मसकुद्दीन ने अपनी जो अपराध से अर्जित जो कमाई थी उसको इन्वेस्टमेंट के तौर अपनी कागज़ों में अपने आप को बचाने के लिए उन्होंने ये मकान, ये ज़मीन अपनी बहू को दान में रजिस्टर्ड कर दी थी और जिसके बाद ये मकान बनाया गया। लेकिन जो परिवार का कहना है कि उनका लोन के द्वारा मकान बनाया गया। प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण ने उमेश पाल हत्याकांड के बाद करीब 2 दर्जन ऐसे लोगों को चिन्हित किया है जो अतीक अहमद के करीबी हैं, चाहे वो गुड्डू मुस्लिम हो, मोहम्मद फैज़ान हो, या जो भी नाम सामने आ रहे हैं। जो अतीक अहमद, उमेश पाल हत्याकांड के साथ तमाम ऐसे लोग हैं जिनकी जानकारी है कि ये अतीक अहमद के दम पर प्रॉपर्टी डीलिंग कर रहे हैं, गुंडई कर रहे हैं, बदमाशी कर रहे हैं, जिनका अपना हिस्ट्री शीट है, चाहे वो गुड्डू मुस्लिम हो, चाहे मोहम्मद गुलाम हो, या दूसरे नाम अरमान का नाम सामने आया। तो ऐसे तमाम लोग जिनके की कनेक्शन सामने आ रहा है अतीक अहमद या उमेश पाल हत्याकांड से, उन सभी की फेहरिस्त तैयार की गई है और उन सभी के ऊपर बुलडोज़र चलाने की बात की जा रही है।
This kind of action will continue is what our reporters are telling us on the ground. This is a huge gang run by known history sheeter Atique Ahmed. He's a Neta turned gangster, currently in jail. He's been charged in several murder cases and has got several criminal cases lodged against him. The latest one, of course, is in connection with the murder of Umesh Pal, the main witness in the murder of BSP MLA Raju Pal in the year 2005.
तो मौजूद हैं, उन्होंने तो अपना पक्ष रखा, लेकिन यहाँ पे दोनों ही पक्ष हैं। कैमरे पर तो कोई नहीं, चूँकि दो ही धड़े हैं। या तो जो लोग प्रशासन को जिनको अच्छा लग रहा है तो वो लोग यहाँ पर इसलिए नहीं बोल रहे हैं ये पूरा अतीक अहमद का इलाका है लिहाजा, और जो लोग अतीक अहमद या इस कार्रवाई के विरोध में हैं तो प्रशासन के डर की वजह से नहीं बोल रहे हैं। तो ये कहा जा सकता है कि मसकुद्दीन जिनके की ये बहू का ये मकान गिराया जा रहा है, यहाँ पर पूरा ये इलाका है, ये एयरफोर्स स्टेशन के बगल में है। आसपास लोग ज़रूर हैं, पुलिस फोर्स ने उनको दूर कर रखा है। यहाँ पर सिर्फ प्रशासनिक अधिकारी हैं, प्रयागराज विकास प्राधिकरण के लोग हैं। जो बुलडोज़र चल रहा है, अब बुलडोज़र एक तरफ से चलना शुरू हुआ है, दूसरी तरफ भी बुलडोज़र चल रहे थे, अब दोनों बुलडोज़र एक ही तरफ हो गए हैं। तो यानी कि ये देर में आज कार्रवाई शुरू हुई, लगभग 1:30-2 बजे के करीब ये लेट में कार्रवाई शुरू हुई। ये कार्रवाई अमूमन 11 बजे शुरू हो जाती थी, लेकिन आज ये लेट कार्रवाई शुरू हुई, लिहाजा एक साथ सारे बुलडोज़र काम कर रहे हैं। माना जा रहा है कि करीब 1.5 से 2 घंटे की मशक्क़त के बाद इस मकान को ज़मींदोज़ कर दिया जाएगा, क्योंकि ये निष्प्रयोज्य करने की एक मंशा होती है कि निष्प्रयोज्य कर दिया जाए, यानी कि दोबारा उसका यूज़ ना किया जा सके। तो ये देखिए बुलडोज़र अपना काम करना शुरू कर दिया है। एक बुलडोज़र बाहर की तरफ जा रहा है, दूसरा बुलडोज़र लेकिन अपना काम कर रहा है, और एक और बुलडोज़र जिसको पोकलैंड मशीन कहते हैं वो दूसरी तरफ से मकान को गिरा रहा है। मकान के सामने से जो पूरा हिस्से को गिराने के बाद अब ये साइड से मकान को, और ये देखिए ये पूरा मकान, ये एक हिस्सा पूरा भरभरा कर गिर गया।
Finally, the structure has in fact come down, is what our reporters are telling us. They're getting us that detailed report and live images on your screen. This visuals coming in from Prayagraj, where the house of an aide of Atique Ahmed has been razed down. This in line with what has been promised by UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath in terms of this kind of action being taken against illegal structures constructed by several gundas in the state of Uttar Pradesh. In fact, not the first time that a structure like this has come down, belonging to a history sheeter. This is Masukuddin and Aide of Atique Ahmed. And we have these pictures live from Prayagraj, where the house has been brought down. JCBs brought in. These are bulldozers that have been rolled into these colonies in Prayagraj as ordered by the Prayagraj Development Authority. Pictures of demolition in Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj, and this is action, remember, that is being taken against those people who have not one, not two, but dozens of cases registered against them. Santosh, my colleague, is there, right there, getting us the very latest. Santosh, what more can you tell us about this demolition activity? And this essentially is going to continue, isn't it?
What I have heard I'm sending you the information. This is the third day the action is going on. Prayagraj Development Authority, the local development authority, on this third day started his drive to demolish the house of one Safakuddin. He is a history sheeter called and very close aide of Atique Ahmed. 3 machines have been deployed to demolish this house. On paper, this house belongs to Masakuddin, daughter-in-law, and she is a government teacher. And her father claims that there is no relation of Masakuddin. He has gifted him this land, and the daughter took loan as she is a government teacher. But the government officials claiming that this is the investment of Masakuddin, who invested his illegal income in this house. And on the other side, one more reason is this, that this land is claimed to be of Air Force. Besides the family members claiming that this land is their ancestral property, and Masakuddin gave this ancestral property as a gift to his daughter-in-law, and after gift deed she constructed this whole house. But today Prayagraj Development Authority started a drive to demolish one of the close aide of Atique Ahmed, the history sheeter of local police station, that is Pura Mufti of Prayagraj. On crime crime record, we can say in Masakuddin, his two sons and one nephew. Total 14 cases, criminal cases have been registered in Prayagraj in different police stations, including Dhumanganj, Pura Mufti, Karnalganj and other police stations. Even in Kausambi, a nearby district, some cases are also being registered on Mufti and his nephew. So we can say there's a crime connection, Atique connection of the property which is going to be demolished. But one thing is very clear, that there is no Umesh Pal murder case connection in this demolition. This is the third day, and on this third day of demolition drive started by Prayagraj Development Authority, there is no connection of Umesh Pal murder case. There is only one connection, that is Atique Ahmed gang connection. Masakuddin is claimed to be a very close aide of Atique Ahmed gang. So the action is going on. What we are seeing, exactly 3 bulldozing machines are working. One is drilling the home, the pillars, cemented pillars, and the other Conclave machine is demolishing the house on the other side. So within, we can expect within 2 hours this whole demolition drive will complete and this whole house will be demolished.
You're picking up, give us a sense of what kind of action then is going to be taken against the others who are a part of the gang of Atique Ahmed.
Please repeat the question.
There will be more action against those members of the gang of Atique Ahmed, whether or not they have involvement in the Umesh Pal murder case, isn't it?
As the action in Umesh Pal murder case is concerned, there is no arresting till now. 1 week has been spent and no arresting is done. Only Sadakat is one who was the conspirator of Umesh Pal murder case, who gave his hostel room to gather those shooters in his room, and only one arresting and one encounter, who was the driver of that Creta car, had been shot in an encounter with police. But those who came in the visuals, those who shot Umesh Pal, those who bombarded Umesh Pal, there is no arresting. 7 persons have been identified. One is Muhammad Ghulam, other is Guddu Muslim, third one is Sabir, fourth one is Asad, who is claimed to be Atique Ahmed's son. And there is no arresting in Umesh Pal murder case, those who are captured in the CCTV camera. So we can say after 1 week of Umesh Pal murder case, there is no arresting, no action on those criminals who have committed this crime. But those who are associated with Atique Ahmed, those who have...
Right. Santosh getting us all of those details. We'll continue tracking that big story from Prayagraj, where the demolition activity continues. With that report, it's time for a break. Here on the other side is an India Today exclusive. Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, speaks to India today.
You are watching India Today.
India Today Conclave 2023, March 17th and 18th, New Delhi. Listen to Janvi Kapoor, Malaika Arora, Anita Sengupta, Abha Adams, Hajar Chena Ramani, Dr. Ruha Shadab. The India Moment.
With the Northeast elections done and dusted, the BJP will now turn its lens onto state of war, Karnataka. BJP's war horse for many decades in the state, B.S. Yedurappa is all set to lead the campaign at the ripe age of 80. Former Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yedurappa has emerged as the man of the moment. Recently felicitated and praised lavishly by Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself.
मुझे याद है कि रैता बंधु येदियुरप्पा जी ने श्री अन्न को प्रोत्साहन देने के लिए यहां कितना बड़ा अभियान चलाया था.
The duo will lead the BJP's campaign for this year's poll battle. B.S. Yediyurappa is electorally important for the BJP considering his role as a Lingayat strongman. The Lingayats make up at least 17% of the Karnataka vote bank and are the largest community in the state. They are also the BJP's most loyal vote bank, thanks to Yediyurappa.
I am not going to contest for elections, but I am go around in the state to come back to power in the Karnataka. For that, I will work day and night. 101% will come back to power next assembly election also.
But the big question looms: who will be the BJP's CM face? Bureau Report, India Today.
It's a very common question that I've seen people deliberating. So if you'd have the answer to that, why should one choose Aide?
Why should one choose Aide? Because that's the best, that's the safest electric scooter right now on the market. It's the most stable electric scooter right now on the market. It's the one that's been built and researched for the longest period, almost 10 years. We started work on the scooter in 2014, early 2013, late 2013, and we're here. What you see here is basically an outcome of all of that.
How many more do you plan to sell? What's the market share that you're looking to capture?
So I think we have finally been able to scale up our production to about 35,000 units a month. That's on capacity. Our supply chain still is scaling up. It's now doing about 16,000 units a month. And I'm confident of crossing about 25,000 units, almost 30,000 units a month by later this year, and fully utilizing this plant by either later this year or early next year. After that, we will be production constrained again, and which point we will start working on a new plant. So about in a year's time, we should utilize our full capacity.
So how does this translate into revenue and profitability?
By revenue, I think Aide will be outside of China. Aide will be the number one or number two electric two-wheeler manufacturer in a few months globally. And by profitability, I think we are still some time away from being profitable, while losses continue to narrow. But given the pace at which market is increasing, we have to continue investing in new capacity, we have to continue investing in new charging infrastructure, new product enhancements. So I think cash profitability is still, I'd say, not this year. It's still a year to work.
are watching India Today.
Welcome back. Now, in an exclusive conversation with India Today, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken broke his silence on the Adani-Hindenburg issue as well as the Russia and Ukraine war. Listen in.
This is an India Today World exclusive. The most prominent voice from the G20 ministerial is joining us here on India Today today. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, many thanks for joining us and doing this.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
The G20 presidency has begun at a tumultuous time. There are so many differences. You've been speaking about it. We've heard various leaders at various press conferences address the same issue. But the bigger question over here is that despite all the conversations and heated exchanges that we've been hearing about, there still is no consensus on the Russia-Ukraine war, no consensus on the communique. Now, in that, I'd like to know how and why has the West failed in isolating Russia? Why do I say that? Because Russia is still in the room, and in fact, you actually met the Russian Foreign Minister, Lavrov.
So first, I think it's very clear in a variety of ways that Russia is isolated in terms of its aggression against Ukraine. Go back a couple of weeks ago, 141 countries, 3/4 of the United Nations, stood up in the General Assembly and voted for a resolution condemning Russia's aggression and calling for a just and durable peace in Ukraine. Here at the G20, the foreign ministers meeting, if you look at the chair's statement that was put out by India, it reflects on the part of 18 of the 20 countries, that is every country except for Russia and China, the very language that was used by the leaders in the Bali meetings just a few months ago in terms of what Russia is doing in Ukraine. So I think world opinion is very, very clear on this. And in the meetings today, I think it's also fair to say that a number of countries again called on Russia to end its aggression. And, you know, this is a concern not just for Ukraine, not just for countries in Europe. It's a concern for the entire world because the consequences of Russia's aggression are being felt around the world. People are feeling it in terms of higher energy prices, higher food prices, and countries are feeling it in a different way because there's been an assault not just on Ukraine, but on the principles at the heart of the United Nations Charter, principles that are necessary for trying to keep the peace around the world, like one country can't simply go and try and take over another, erase its borders, erase its identity. So I think it's very clear where the world is on this, and that was reflected here again in New Delhi.
But the aggression continues, and there is no stopping them. G20 has not been able to. US sanctions have not been able to. So when we talk about isolation, we're talking about absolute isolation of a country that is an aggressor. And that certainly doesn't seem to be the case here.
Well, I think if you look at what's actually happened, the Ukrainian people, with a lot of support from countries around the world, have actually stopped what Russia was trying to do. Russia was trying to erase Ukraine from the map, to absorb it into Russia, to make it so that it didn't exist anymore. That has failed, and it's failed because the Ukrainian people stood up and because so much of the world came to help Ukraine in defending itself. Since then, since that initial attempt to eliminate Ukraine as an independent country failed, Russia has been pushed back in Ukraine to the east and to the south. The Ukrainians have taken back more than 50% of the territory that Russia seized from it early on in the aggression. Unfortunately, tragically, Russia is persisting. It's true, it hasn't stopped. But as it's doing that, it is suffering tremendously. President Putin has inflicted terrible damage not only on Ukraine, but on his own country. Public accounts say that Russia has suffered 200,000 casualties, killed and wounded in Ukraine. And he keeps throwing bodies into this war, a war of his own making. More than 1 million Russians have left the country. Right. They tend to be the most educated and most sophisticated in building a modern economy. 1,000 companies from around the world have left Russia. They're not doing business there because the reputational cost of doing business has gotten to be too great. So all of those things, as well as the sanctions and export controls, are having an increasingly heavy weight on Russia. But ultimately, yes, the objective is to get it to stop the aggression and to restore Ukraine's full sovereignty. And that requires that we continue to support Ukraine and continue to exert pressure on Russia.
And it will take time. But you're here in New Delhi, and concerns of New Delhi and India are a little different. We're talking about China here. Do you think, because of this war, the focus has shifted from China and Chinese aggression, whether it is against Taiwan, India, or for that matter, now we see Chinese spy balloons in American airspace? Is that a concern? How do you see America counter China? And how do you see America continue being a net security provider for the world?
On the contrary, I'm seeing two things. First, as I mentioned, even as so many countries are working to support Ukraine, they're also working together, including here at the G20, to address global problems of concern to people around the world. And I mentioned a few of them, from food insecurity to energy insecurity to climate to global health, including in the wake of COVID, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. At the same time, I actually think that what Russia has done in Ukraine has awakened other parts of the world to concerns about other would-be aggressors. And the very reason that so many countries beyond Europe are standing up against Russia's aggression is because they know that if we let that aggression stand with impunity, then other would-be aggressors might say, well, if Russia can get away with it, so can we, so can I. And that, I think, is a powerful motivator. At the same time, tomorrow we'll be meeting with our partners in the Quad, Australia, Japan, and India. And I'm very much looking forward to that, because we've done a lot of work to focus on issues of common concern to us in the Indo-Pacific. And the United States is deeply engaged throughout the Indo-Pacific with a shared goal that we have with India, with Japan, with Australia, but also with most of the countries in the region, and that is to make sure that we maintain a free, open, prosperous Indo-Pacific. And there are so many things that we're doing together to ensure that we're able to do that.
Talking about another concern that India has, there has been a lot of criticism when it comes to the Indian government with regards to certain American businessmen and short sellers who have come out with reports that have not gone down well with the government, particularly massive losses to one of India's top industrialists, Gautam Adani. And then George Soros coming out and saying that the Hindenburg report will lead to a democratic revival in India. Was this matter discussed with your Indian counterpart, Dr. Jaishankar? If so, what was your response? If not, could you weigh in on the matter?
It wasn't discussed, and I think for a very good reason. These are private matters concerning private companies, private citizens, and they don't affect the relationship between the United States and India, the government to government, and the work we're doing both directly bilaterally, but also here at the G20 in support of India's leadership. That's exactly what we focused on today, the work that we've been doing, and it's been quite extraordinary, in deepening and strengthening the strategic partnership between India and the United States. I think it's reaching unprecedented levels, and we look forward to demonstrating that further when Prime Minister Modi visits Washington in the coming time. And at the same time, today the focus was intensely on the very ambitious agenda that India has for the G20 and the support the United States is providing to that agenda.
There's another very important aspect of in the Indo-US cooperation, which is health, the health sector, COVID-19, but the prospects are grim when it comes to reports that are emerging now. The US Energy Department has concluded that COVID pandemic most likely arose from a laboratory leak. In that, you've had many agencies report to you, send out reports. What can we conclusively say that Beijing indeed is indulging in biological warfare?
There are some very distinct things here that it's important to be clear on. First, President Biden was determined from day one to get to the bottom of the origins of COVID-19, why it happened, how it happened, in order to enable us to make sure to the greatest extent possible that it doesn't happen again. And in doing that, he asked all of our intelligence agencies to focus their resources and their attention on this question. And what we have now, after extensive study, is some of our agencies and departments believing that COVID originated from a lab leak in Wuhan. Others believing it's more likely that it originated at a animal market, also in Wuhan. None of the agencies being able to say conclusively that it was one or the other. And so the bottom line is we don't know conclusively, but of course the possibility that it originated in a lab is very clear and very real, and that's what some agencies think is more likely, again, not conclusively. But that's also separate from the question of whether this had anything to do with a biological weapon and anything to do with intentional actions by a country to develop it, use it, release it. And none of the agencies, to my knowledge, have found that.
But do you see biological warfare as a threat coming from China separately?
We have real concerns about the potential development and use of bioweapons in various places around the world. We've been working for years to try to ensure that that wouldn't happen. There's something called the Biological Weapons Convention that we're a strong adherent to, and at the same time we have programs around the world to help countries that have biological research programs for medical reasons, for example, to make sure that they are fully safe and secure.
My final question to you. The US CIRF report under your leadership has been highly critical of India when it comes to certain categories, whether it's freedom of speech or treatment of minorities. Is that an area that was covered in your bilateral meetings with Dr. Jaishankar? And if so, again, what was India's response to it?
We have an ongoing dialogue on both of our democracies and human rights, because as the world's two largest democracies, it's central to who we are. It's central to our identity. And in our own case, we've had, from day one of our own democracy, our founding fathers set as an objective to try to form a more perfect union, which is an acknowledgement that we're not perfect, we never will be, but it's in trying to do ever better on democracy, on human rights, that we make progress. And I think that's a shared commitment that both of us have. And when questions or issues come up, we discuss them directly, very openly, very freely. And I think we would hold each other to account when there are concerns. And that's, I think, typical of many of our conversations, and came up today as well. But the point is that we're engaging on these issues directly, as friends, as partners, and I believe and hope working to make sure that both of our societies continue to get stronger when it comes to our democracies and when it comes to human rights.
Secretary Blinken, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today and for this very candid conversation. Thank you.
Thanks. Very good to be with you. Appreciate it.
With that, it's time for a quick commercial break here. We're getting news of the hearing impaired on the other side.
You are watching India Today.
September 14th, 2020. A 19-year-old Dalit woman is allegedly gang raped in a village in Hathras district of Uttar Pradesh. 2 weeks later, she succumbs to injuries at a hospital in Delhi. Her death and overnight cremation, allegedly without the family's consent, sparked off public anger and protests. After almost 3 years, a Hathras court has delivered its verdict in the case. One accused, Sandeep, is convicted, while the remaining 3 stand acquitted. Sandeep is held guilty of culpable homicide, not amounting to murder, and under sections of SC/ST Act. He has been sentenced to life imprisonment and a fine of 50,000 has been imposed. Other accused Ravi, Lavkush and Ramu will walk free. Charges of rape have been dropped.
सर 3 लोगों को रिहा कर दिया है, बरी कर दिया है, और एक संदीप है उसे दोषी माना है। केवल एक मुलजिम को दोषी माना है बस।
किस मामले का दोषी माना है?
310 में माना है और 304 में माना है।
तो 376 का जो मुकदमा था उसमें
रेप सिद्ध नहीं हुआ है।
Families of the accused have hailed the court's verdict and demanded the release of Sandeep as well.
बढ़िया है जो कोर्ट ने फैसला लो, बढ़िया लो, बढ़िया बात है। चारों वालों का निर्दोष है, चारों को गए ना।
The victim's family is considering moving the High Court to challenge the acquittal of 3 accused.
3 को इसमें बरी कर दिया गया। उन 3 के अगेंस्ट में हम हाई कोर्ट में अपील करेंगे डेफिनेटली इसमें, और साथ ही अभी जजमेंट हमारे पास है, उसका देखेंगे कि कोर्ट ने क्या ऑब्जर्वेशन दिया है, रेप के धारा में क्यों कन्विक्शन नहीं किया, अन्य धाराओं में और जो लगाई हुई थी CBI ने और चार्ज जिन धाराओं में फ्रेम हुआ था उसमें क्यों कन्विक्शन नहीं हुआ।
The CBI, which investigated the case, had filed a 2,000-page charge sheet on December 29, 2020. The agency took statements from 104 witnesses. Bureau Report, India Today.